Before we begin, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you're watching this late at night, let me know where you're from and what time it is where you are. That way YouTube knows you want more stories just like this, delivered straight into the dark. Now let's begin. I was 12 the last time I ever went to a sleepover. It wasn't because I outgrew them or because I didn't have friends. It was because of what happened that night at Sam's house, a night I've never fully talked about until now. Sam lived just 5 houses down. We had grown up together. His place was always the cool hangout. Big screen TV, soda in the fridge, a finished basement where we built forts and played video games until our eyes burned. That weekend, Sam's parents were away. Just Sam, his older brother Nate, and me. We were excited. Nate ordered us pizza, let us pick a horror movie, and promised not to tattle if we stayed up past midnight. Everything felt like freedom. By 11:30, we were halfway through the ring, sitting in sleeping bags, the room flickering with static and shadows. Sam suddenly paused the movie and said, "Want to try something scarier?" I thought he was joking. He looked dead serious. "It's called the wall game," he whispered. "You go down to the basement, press your ear to the furnace wall, and you wait. People say it talks back." I laughed nervously. "What talks back?" He shrugged. "The wall. They say it remembers stuff. Names, secrets, people that disappeared." I didn't believe him. Of course I didn't. But the way he said it, it made my skin crawl a little. We grabbed flashlights and tiptoed down the creaky wooden stairs. Nate stayed upstairs blasting music. The basement was colder than I remembered. The kind of cold that clings to your bones even under layers. Boxes were stacked along the walls, cobwebs in the corners. One side of the room was finished. The other, the far side behind the furnace, looked almost untouched. There, the wall was cracked, discolored, like it had been wet at some point and never fully dried. "That's it," Sam whispered. I said nothing. He walked forward first, knelt beside the furnace and pressed his ear to the wall. After about 30 seconds, he pulled back, pale. "Did you hear something?" He nodded slowly, whispers. I chuckled, trying to shake the tension. "You're messing with me." "Try it," he said and handed me the flashlight. I crouched down, rested my head against the cold concrete, and waited. At first, all I could hear was my heartbeat, the occasional creak of the furnace behind me. But then, something changed. The sound faded like silence itself had thickened. I could hear something faint behind the wall, like fingers dragging along drywall, slow and deliberate. Then a whisper, low, unclear, but definitely a voice. And then it said my name. I ripped my head back and scrambled to my feet. "Dude, that's not funny." Sam raised his hands. I didn't say anything. We ran back upstairs, not saying a word. I pretended it didn't scare me. We finished the movie and tried to sleep, but I couldn't. Around 2:45 a.m., I had to pee. I tiptoed through the hallway, everything dark except for the green microwave clock in the kitchen. As I passed the basement door, I froze. There was a sound, a soft knock from the other side of the door. 1, 2, 3. Then a voice, muffled, like someone calling from behind thick glass. My name. It said my name again. This time clearer. I stepped back and turned, trying to convince myself it was nothing. My foot creaked on the wood. Then, the knob twitched. I ran back to Sam's room, locked the door, and buried myself in my sleeping bag, heart pounding like a war drum. The next morning, Sam acted like nothing had happened, but I couldn't ignore it. At breakfast, I quietly asked his mom, "Is something wrong with your basement wall?" She paused, then gave me a strange smile. "We used to hear things too when we first moved in. That's why we stopped using that side. Some walls hold more than just bricks and air." I left early. Sam and I stayed friends for a while, but I never went back to his house again. He moved away the next year, and even now when the house is gone, and I live in a city apartment far away from that town. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, I'll walk past a wall and hear it. Scratching, whispers, and every so often, my name. It was the summer before 8th grade when my parents dropped me off at my cousin Lily's place for the weekend. They were attending some out-of-town wedding, and I was told it'd be fun to spend time with family. Lily lived in an old, sprawling Victorian-style house on the edge of town. You know the kind: tall windows, long hallways, creaky floors, and a faint smell of dust that never goes away. We weren't exactly close, but we got along fine. That first night, we played board games, watched a few episodes of some cartoon, and got ready for bed. Lily's room was at the end of the second-floor hallway. There was a spare mattress set out for me right under the window. On the wall across from my side was an old full-length mirror. I didn't like that mirror. It was antique, carved wooden frame, slightly chipped, and the glass itself was odd. It had this warped quality to it. The reflections were a little off, like things in the room weren't exactly where they were supposed to be. Before we turned off the lights, I asked Lily, "Does that mirror always look like that?" She shrugged. "It was my great-grandma's. It's been here forever. I don't really use it." That night I had trouble sleeping. The floorboards groaned. The air felt heavier than usual. Lily snored softly beside me while I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. At some point, I don't know how late, I heard something, a shuffle, like bare feet sliding across the wood. I thought it was Lily getting up, but when I turned, she was still sound asleep. Then I saw it. In the mirror. A figure, standing just beside the window, inside the room. My heart slammed into my ribs. I sat up. But there was no one there. Just my reflection and Lily's sleeping form. But in the mirror, that figure remained. It was a woman. Tall, pale, wearing some kind of long dress. Her hair hung wet and stringy over her face. She didn't move. She just stood there watching. Not me directly, but the mirror version of me, as if she only existed in the reflection. I looked away, blinked, looked back. She was gone. I didn't sleep after that. In the morning, I told Lily what I saw. She went pale. "That's the mirror guest," she said. "I saw her once when I was little." I told my mom, and she told me not to talk about her. Said she only shows herself if you notice something's off. "What happens if she does?" I asked. She didn't answer. She just stared at the mirror, and then quietly threw a blanket over it. That day, I asked to sleep on the couch downstairs. Her mom didn't argue, didn't even ask why. Years later, I saw that mirror again, at a garage sale, same frame, same warped glass. The woman selling it smiled at me and said, "People say this mirror's haunted, isn't that funny?" I didn't laugh. I turned around and left without saying a word. But sometimes, just sometimes, when I pass by a mirror in my own apartment, I don't look too closely, because if I ever see her again, I'm afraid she'll know I remember her. When I was around 11, I had a sleepover at my friend Mason's place. His house was on the outskirts of town, quiet, surrounded by woods, the kind of place that gets completely dark once the sun sets. No streetlights, no passing cars, just the sound of wind and insects after dusk. His parents were cool. They gave us space, let us eat junk food, and even let us stay up late to play video games in the living room. Eventually, around 2 a.m., we turned everything off and made our little bedrolls in the den. That's when I noticed something weird. There was this little door no bigger than a cupboard, built low into the wall near the floor. Mason told me it was the crawl space. "No one uses it," he shrugged. "It's sealed off anyway." But I swear, sometime after we went to sleep, I heard it creak. Just once, but loud enough to make me open my eyes. The room was completely dark. Mason was breathing heavily in his sleeping bag, but my eyes went straight to that little door. It was slightly open, just a crack. I lay frozen, heart pounding. I thought maybe Mason had opened it earlier and I just didn't notice. I told myself that, over and over. Eventually, I rolled over and forced myself to sleep. The next morning, the door was closed. When I mentioned it to Mason, he shrugged again. Yeah, it does that sometimes. It's just loose. My dad says not to worry about it. I forgot about it until that night. We had another sleepover the next weekend. Same setup, same den, same crawlspace door. This time I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at that little door. At some point after midnight, I finally dozed off. And then I woke up to a sound. Tap, tap, tap. I opened my eyes, and I swear I saw the door swing shut, slowly, silently, as if someone had just gone inside. I nudged Mason. Dude, the door. Something's in there. He sat up and stared. Man, don't mess with me. I'm serious, I whispered. It moved. Mason turned on the flashlight, walked over and opened it wide. Nothing, just blackness, cold air wafted out. He aimed the flashlight in. The space was shallow, only a few feet deep, but it looked like it went further back into the foundation. Mason crawled in without warning. I panicked. Mason, get out of there, man! But he just said, there's something written on the wall. He went quiet for maybe 10 seconds. Then he backed out slowly. His face was pale. It says, not asleep yet. We didn't sleep that night. When we told his dad the next day, he went pale. He marched downstairs with a hammer and nails, and without a word sealed the crawl space shut. I asked him what that message meant. He didn't answer. But when I was leaving, he pulled me aside and said, next time you hear something behind a wall, don't answer it. Don't even think about it. Just sleep. Years later, I drove by Mason's old house. It was abandoned, windows boarded up, crawl space door pried open and swinging loose in the breeze. And inside, someone had written in red spray paint, still not asleep. It was during a group sleepover in 7th grade, a weekend camping retreat organized by our school. They rented this large, creaky old cabin in the woods, big enough to hold about 20 kids, all in sleeping bags on the floor. We were supervised by 2 teachers who stayed in a smaller cabin nearby, just out of sight. The place had no central lighting, just a few battery lanterns and our own flashlights. It was rustic, no Wi-Fi, barely any cell reception. The kind of place where the silence rings in your ears at night. We did all the usual stuff, roasted marshmallows, played card games, told ghost stories. By midnight, the cabin was lights out, just the quiet sound of breathing and the occasional shuffle in a sleeping bag. I had trouble sleeping. Maybe it was the cold hardwood floor beneath me, or the fact that one of the boys had told a story about the Lantern Man, a spirit who roamed cabins and shined his light in your face while you slept. If you opened your eyes and saw him, you were next. Typical kid nonsense, right? Still, that story stuck with me. Somewhere around 3 a.m., I woke up, but not on my own. There was a light, faint, flickering, moving across the ceiling. It wasn't coming from the windows. It was inside the cabin. Someone was walking around with a flashlight. At first, I assumed it was a teacher checking on us. But as I blinked awake, I realized something felt off. The beam didn't move like someone holding it normally. It jerked, paused, hovered too long in one place, sometimes directly on a sleeping kid's face. Then it reached me. The light stopped right on my eyes, and stayed there. I squinted, pretending to still be asleep, but through the smallest slit in my eyelids I could see the light. And then, a face behind it. Not a teacher, not a kid. This man, if you could call it that, had sunken, wet-looking eyes and a grin that didn't match anything human. The light from the flashlight seemed to bend around him, like it didn't want to illuminate him properly. I stayed frozen, not even breathing. The light started to shake, not from unsteadiness, but like someone was trembling with excitement. Then it moved on. The flashlight wandered to the next kid, and the next, slowly, intentionally. It faded toward the back of the cabin and disappeared. I waited, what felt like forever. Then, without warning, the door creaked open. It never made that sound before. Just a long, low groan of rotting wood and rusted hinges. Then silence. In the morning, everyone acted normal. No one else saw it. I asked the teachers if they came by during the night. Both shook their heads, said they were asleep. I told one of them about the man with the flashlight. She didn't laugh. She didn't say it was a dream either. She just looked at me and said, "If he stopped on you and you're still here, you were lucky." I was 14 when I had my first sleepover at Caleb's house, and the last. He'd been my friend since grade school, and I'd always wanted to hang out at his place. But whenever I asked, he'd deflect. Say his house was too messy, his parents were working late, or his little sister was sick. Then one weekend, out of nowhere, he invited me over. Said his parents were out of town and we'd have the place to ourselves. I jumped at the chance. But the moment I stepped through his front door, something felt off. His house wasn't like mine. Warm, noisy, filled with scents of dinner or the sound of a TV humming in the background. Caleb's house was silent. Too silent. Like it was holding its breath. And cold. Not temperature-wise, just emotionally. Like the walls had seen things and wanted no part in welcoming strangers. He took me downstairs, into the basement. That's where his bedroom was. Not by choice, apparently. His parents had converted the room years ago and he just got used to it. As we descended the creaky wooden stairs, I noticed the air thickening. It smelled like dust, mildew, and something I couldn't quite place. Like wet cardboard and old iron. The kind of smell you associate with forgotten things. Caleb's room itself wasn't that bad. Posters on the walls, a TV, a gaming console, 2 beanbags, and a mattress on the floor. But the space outside his room, that was a different story. The basement stretched back behind a half-closed wooden door. He said it led to an old laundry room and a storage area his family never used. He'd always keep that door shut. We spent the night playing games and talking nonsense like teenagers do. By midnight, we were both lying on our sleeping bags, half watching a movie on his laptop when the screen flickered. Then it shut off. At first, I thought the battery died, but the basement light bulb also dimmed, then snapped off completely. Total darkness. Caleb groaned. Power surge happens a lot down here. He fumbled around and clicked on his emergency flashlight, a long metal mag light that gave off a weird yellow glow. He handed it to me while he went looking for a candle. That's when I noticed something strange. The flashlight didn't behave normally. The shadows it cast were delayed, like the light was cutting through some thick liquid instead of air. It moved slowly, unnaturally, and sometimes I swear the shadows lingered after I moved the beam. Caleb came back with a candle and a box of matches. "This helps calm the room down," he said, almost joking. But I heard something in his voice. A tremble. He lit the candle and placed it on the table. We sat there for a while in the soft glow, trying to brush off the weird tension. That's when it started. A soft scratching. Not from the door, not from the floor. From inside the wall. At first, we both looked around, trying to find a mouse or something. Then it got louder, rhythmic, deliberate. Scratch, 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 in a circular pattern. Like someone slowly dragging fingernails in a loop behind the drywall. Caleb's face turned pale. "Don't worry, it'll stop soon." "What do you mean, it'll stop soon? What is that?" He hesitated, looked down. "It happens sometimes when people sleep over. Only at night. Only in this room." I stared at him. "You brought me down here knowing that?" "I didn't think it would happen again. It doesn't always." Then came the whisper. So soft I thought it was in my head. "Don't look at the door." I froze. The whisper was feminine, close inside the wall. Caleb looked at me, You heard it too? I nodded. He blew out the candle. What are you doing? Don't give it light. If it sees us, it doesn't go back. Now we sat in pitch blackness. I could hear my own pulse. Then something knocked from inside the wall. Once. Twice. Then silence. We didn't move, we didn't breathe. The knock returned, but this time from the ceiling. Then the closet door creaked open by itself. I grabbed my phone and used the screen's glow to scan the room. Nothing, just shadows. But something was different. I felt watched. That kind of gaze that doesn't just watch you, but studies you. Like something learning your fear. Eventually, we passed out from sheer exhaustion. When we woke up, it was morning. The lights were back. We said nothing as we packed our bags. But before I left, I took one last look at the wall where the scratching came from. There were marks, long looping grooves in the plaster, like someone had scratched it from the outside. And in the center, faintly etched, "Thanks for staying." If you made it this far, thank you for spending your night with us. If these stories gave you chills, there's plenty more waiting. Don't forget to subscribe to NightFear Stories for new terrifying tales every single night. Sleep well, if you can.